Okay, so in this video we're going to talk about SITUS and what SITUS is. SITUS has to do with a lot of things that people have questions about. It has to do with standing, it has to do with rights, powers, it has to do with jurisdiction, sovereignty, liberty, authority, land, where you stand, what court you're in, and all kinds of other things. It has to do with movable and non-movables. And so I want to start by just going over a bunch of things that have to do with SITUS. And I think by the time we're done, you're going to have a really good idea of what SITUS is. So demixis, mobilia, and some other Latin words. We have said that movables are understood to have their locality, which is the SITUS, where their owner has established his domicile, and they cannot change the same other than along with the domicile. So if the domicile changes, then the fixed property changes. But when it's a movable, such as your private personal items, it's a movable SITUS. So it's attached to the person and not the location. So we have personal jurisdiction. Which government has personal jurisdiction or jurisdiction over the person? When do they have that? If you can contract yourself to them, then they can gain some jurisdiction over you and the subject matter, but only when you agree by contract. And in other ways, they gain jurisdiction. Basically, our government, the representative government, gains jurisdiction only by your will. So let's just look at some more stuff. Okay, offshore trusts. You see foreign SITUS trust under trust. Reification. 1. Mental conversion of an abstract concept into a material thing. Or 2. Civil procedure. Identification of the disputed thing in a non-personal action and attributed of an in-state SITUS to it for jurisdictional purposes. Cite. Okay, I want you to pay attention to this word because CITE is a French word, and it means a lot of different things, and it has to do with cite as in a citation, issuing you a citation. City, it has to do with sip, like sipping from a cup. It has to do with sieve, like leaking, something leaking. So to drain something, to sip from something, to take from something, to take from the city or the people of the city. Sort of like the Holy Roman See, where they build their cathedrals and they called them cities or sites, and they took from people a small amount, like a sip from their cup. Okay, so site and SITUS are related. Who gets to sip from your cup? Who gets to take from you? Who gets authority over you and your property? That's what we're talking about here when we talk about SITUS. SITUS, the location or position of something for legal purposes, as in lex situs, the law of the place where the thing in issue is situated. A tax SITUS, we're going to go over to a quick tax thing too in Title 26. This is Frisia SITUS, and then I think this definition goes with something else, so I missed this part of it, but you can look up that word. Tax SITUS, a state or other jurisdiction that has a substantial connection with assets that are subject to taxation. Now, if the Constitution is for the federal people on the federal lands or the states, then there is no federal Constitution for individual people. However, there's a big however in there, and that's going to be something that I go over in another video, and I think it's related to the incorporation. Where it was said that all debts are payable everywhere unless there be some special limitation or provision in respect to the payments. Debts as such have no situs or locus, but accompany the creditor everywhere and authorize a demand upon the debtor everywhere, and that in general the debtor is bound to seek the creditor. So situs, as far as credit goes with the person, it's a movable thing, not a location, not a fixed location. And then we have personality, and at the bottom it says see situs. So let's see what it says about personality. A term used to designate that quality of a law which concerns the condition, state, or capacity of persons. An action in personality is one brought against the right person or the person against whom it lies. The personality of laws is a phrase used by foreign jurists to designate all laws concerning the condition, state, or capacity of persons as distinguished from the reality of laws, which means all laws concerning property or things, to express the idea that the operation of a law is universal in its term. It is termed a personal statute, and, on the other hand, to express the idea that its operation is confined to the country of its origin, it is designated a real statute. So I wonder, how many statutes are we following that are real that we're following as if they're personal, and vice versa? Livermore used the words personality and reality, and Henry used the words personality and reality. Story preferred the former as less likely to lead to mistakes, as, in our law, personality and realty are used exclusively to designate personal and real property. See SITUS. SITUS. Situation, location, generally property, in order to be subjection of taxation, must be within the jurisdiction of the power assuming the tax. To regard to tangible property, the old rule was mobilia sequitur personam, to be often misleading, by which personal property was supposed to follow the person of its owner and to be subject to the law of the owner's domicile. For the purpose of taxation, however, it has long been held that personal property may be separated from its owner, and he may be taxed on its account at the place where the property is, although it is not the place of his own domicile, and even if he is not a citizen or resident of the state which imposes the tax. The question of the locality of choses in action has, it is said, come up most frequently in the following classes of cases. 1. Those relating to the administration of estates of deceased persons, and cases of gifts by will or personal property in a particular locality. And it looks like there was more here, and I didn't get it. Tangible property, that which may be felt or touched. It may necessarily be corporeal, but it may be real or personal. See tax, situs, movable. A tax imposed by a state upon tangible property within its limits, the owner of which is a non-resident, is not a personal charge against the owner, but must be enforced against the property. People v. Shenango Corporation, First Parish in Sudbury. And such personality cannot be taxed unless it has an actual situs within the state so as to be under the protection of its laws. So that's interesting. A personality cannot be taxed unless it has an actual situs within the state. The rule or fiction of law that personal property, more especially choses in action, has no situs away from the domicile of the owner, at which, if it is deemed to be present, originated according to the Savanti in Rome, and acquired the designation of a mobilia personam sequitur, but its applicability to property was never held to extend beyond Roman territory. Subsequently, it became a device of international comity, which, It has been declared was subsequently adopted from considerations of general convenience and policy and for the benefit of commerce. It was never invented with a view to its being used as a rule to govern and define the application and scope of taxation, nor was it intended to have any other meaning than that for the purposes of the sale and distribution of property and act, agreement, or authority, which is sufficient in law where the owner resides, shall pass the property in the place where the property is, more especially to facilitate the distribution of decedent's estates. So SITUS, taxes upon property having a SITUS within its territory and so employed, and the franchise of a corporation so employed. Foreign creditor, one who is resident in a state or country foreign to that of the domicile of the debtor or the SITUS of his property. The essential service of foreign attachment laws is to reach and arrest the payment of what is due and might be paid to a non-resident to the defeat of his creditors. To do this, he must go to the domicile of his debtor and can only do it under the laws and procedure enforced there. This is the legal necessity, and considerations of SITUS are somewhat artificial, if not artificial. Whatever of substance there is must be with the debtor. He and he only has something in his hands. That something is a res and gives character to the action, as known in the nature of a proceeding in rem. Dictionary. SITUS, noun, the place to which, for purposes of legal jurisdiction or taxation, a property belongs. Title 26. SITUS of property subject to lien. For purposes of paragraphs 1 and 4, property shall be deemed to be situated. Real property, in the case of real property, at its physical location, or B, personal property, in the case of personal property, whether tangible or intangible, at the residence of the taxpayer at the time the notice of lien is filed. So remember, the federal government has authority over the federal lands, and that's where the Constitution applies. Let's see. But that we may know whether a contract as to its subject matter is valid or invalid, we shall refer to the laws which are impressed upon the things concerning which there is question, that is, to the customer or law of the place. SITUS. The same rule obtains in quasi-contracts as in express contracts. SITUS. Position, location, site, as for jurisdiction. So who has the power to make the law? Where you sit is where the power to make the law is. There are two kinds of goods, some movable, some immovable. The former take their law in the person, the domicile of the person, the latter from the SITUS of each place, so that no regard being had to the place of origin, death, or domicile alike of the heirs as of the decedent himself, they shall be distributed according to the laws of the places where the goods either are or are understood to be. If, therefore, the tax in its nature a lawful tax, and the property subjected to it is not protected from its operation by reason of its employment in the operations of interstate commerce, the question of SITUS is not a federal one. Same thing. Let's see, this is Title 28. Word action was substituted for suit. Section 117 of Title 28 U.S. Code 1940 applied to land or other property of a fixed character lying in different states within the same circuit. Words property, real, personal, or mixed, situated in different districts, were inserted to broaden the scope of this section to cover all property in different districts without respect to SITUS within different states within the same judicial circuit. Title 28. follow, to conform to, comply with, or fixed, or determined by, as in the expressions cost follow the event of the suit, the situs of personal property follows that of the owner, the offspring follows the mother. There's a lot of law that goes back to the, I think it's called Sumerians, the Sumerians who wrote the cuneiform. They had this concept that the children always follow the mother, but they also had a concept that you could always return back to your mother. So anyone at any time, any place, no matter what their situation was, they could always go back to the situation of being under their mother. It's return to mother. You can look it up. There's something, a symbol in a lot of liberty type style books that means return to mother, or amagi. Site or site. So we're getting to site. The site is the place, the city, the situation, the place that gets to sip from your cup. The standing of any place, the situation of a capital house or mesuage, a territory or part of a country, as the site of the late dissolved monastery of, the place where it stood, the place where you stand. Okay, you're standing. What's your status? What's your situation? Whose rule are you under? Whose laws are you under? If you're in the military, you're under federal laws. If you're not in the military, you're under your state laws. I don't know if this is SITUS. Let's see, rule of fiction. I don't think this is. Okay, so locus, the place or position where something is done or exists. See, SITUS. Okay, here's a property located in Aransas Pass, Texas. I took out all the identifying information, but the address, the SITUS. The SITUS is the address. That's to tell them whose law the property comes under, who is taxing it. Categoria. We've gone over categories that was found in one of my books, the book called Minding the Law, where they talk about how government likes to categorize everything and everyone and every action. A series or order of all the predicates. That's an important word in law, predicates. I haven't gone over that yet. We'll go over that some other time. Or attributes contained under a genus. Aristotle made 10 categories: substance, quantity, quality, relation, where am I? Action, passion. Is it passion? Time, place, situation, and habit. And let's see, Austin, in the book How to Do Things with Words, he went over some of these things. He called them different words, but we have them there. Exercitives, behabitives, and so on. We've gone over those. Debitum. So we're talking, what's this, French or Latin? I don't know. It doesn't say. Loki. I'm thinking this is Latin. A note made in Boston without a specific place of payment may be demanded and sued in England or vice versa, because such note has no controlling place but may be demanded of the maker wherever he is. In short, all debts are payable everywhere except there be some special limitation or provision in respect to the payment, the rule being that debts as such have no locus or situs but accompanying the creditor, and follow and authorize a demand upon the debtor everywhere. So if it follows you, does that mean if you die, your debt goes with you? Okay, so jurisdiction and situs. So remember, I'm thinking Articles of Confederation, the United States of America being the states, have all their freedom, sovereignty, and independence, rights, powers, and jurisdictions not given to the United States, and the United States, under the federal Constitution, works for the United States of America. It was ratified by all the states, and that made it a contract with all the states. And the reason why it had to be ratified by all the states was because all the states are each in their own individual capacity free, sovereign, and independent, with all rights, powers, and jurisdictions not given to the United States. So each state had the right to ratify the federal Constitution. But the federal Constitution, inside the federal Constitution, says it only applies to the federal people on the federal land. That's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. So the federal government taxes the states. The states are supposed to tax the people, but here we have the people are taxed by the state and the federal government, and the federal government was created by the states. So aren't we in a situation where the federal taxes are actually just another state tax? So are we being taxed twice by the state? That's what it looks like to me. That's double taxation. Immovables, jurisdiction. The right to the possession of land can be tried in the courts of the SITUS. So wherever you stand, whatever your standing is, that's where you're at. That's where your court is. That's where your taxes are. That's where your property is. That's where everything is. All your laws are made for that SITUS, for that place, for those properties, unless it's immovable. Okay, so a trial elsewhere would be nugatory, as the officers of no other power could, without violating the national sovereignty, use force upon the spot to put or establish the successful litigant in possession. To a similar effect, each sovereign state is held internationally to have the eminent domain of its territory. Okay, so let's skip down here. The right of property in land can only be tried in the courts of the SITUS, for such property derives its only meaning and value from the right to possession. The Roman law indeed allowed the defendant to be sued at his domicile in rem for the recovery of land situate in another province as well as in personam. Between the forum rei and that of the SITUS, the plaintiff might choose A, but that might well be in an empire subject to one supreme head who could enforce throughout his dominions the process of any of his courts. Now remember, we don't live in an empire, we live in a republic, and we have separation of governments, state, national, and military. Okay, so SITUS, like I said, it has to do with where your property sits and where your action is being done, and who has authority to sip from your cup, what city you're in, what citations you can be given, the standing, jurisdiction, the authority over you. It's all related to SITUS, and that's the land. So we're not on federal lands, so why are we being told we need to follow federal laws? Why are we told that we need to pay federal taxes? Well, I'll tell you that part of that is that the corporations we work for are registered as doing business with the federal government, and part of then the laws for the corporations is to tax you and your income, but also because we're using those Federal Reserve notes, which belong to the Federal Reserve Bank, and the Federal Reserve Bank is contracted in as a private corporation to work for or with the federal government. So it has to follow federal laws, okay? And so that's how we're caught in under the federal taxation, I think. And there's probably a lot of other stuff that has to do with it that I'm not going to get to in this short video. But this is just something about SITUS for you to think of when you're out there doing your studying, or when you're thinking about like whose authority you're under, and is the proper authority claiming that you owe them some money. Do they have actual proper authority? Sure, they can say this, that, and the other, but did you sign a contract to become a person under their authority, to have standing in their court, or for them to have standing in court against you? And where did they get that authority? Did they come by it legitimately? Are they an actual government, or are they another private corporation like the Federal Reserve Bank? So these are questions that are good questions. Someone in my subscriber list is asking these questions. They're great questions to ask. It shows that he's thinking. A lot of people don't like to think because think causes stress and people move away from stress, but people who move away from stress move away from thinking, and those are called sheeple, and we're not sheeple. So let's start thinking about these things and asking questions. Okay, so with that, like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions on SITUS or anything I went over in this video, please feel free to ask. I can't probably answer all your questions. I'll try my best to answer as much as I can, or maybe point you into a direction. Please share on your social media platforms because I need more subscribers to help get this information out. And I'll see y'all in the next video.